Magandang araw sa lahat. Narito na naman tayo sa ating review for board exam. This time, another 15 questions na naman for psychological assessment ang pag-aaralan natin. Ready ka na ba? Let's start! Psychological assessment review questions. Number 1. The word psychometric means A. A form of measurement used by neurologists. B. Any form of mental testing. Letter C. A mental trait which cannot be measured. Or letter D. The test relies on a summated or linear rating scale. Number 2. In a projective test, the client is shown A. Something which is highly reinforcing. B. Something which is highly charged from an emotional standpoint. Letter C. A and B. Or letter D. Neutral stimuli. Number 3. The 16PF reflects the work of A. Raymond B. Cattell. B. Carl Jung. C. James McKean Cattell, or letter D, Oscar K. Burroughs. Number 4. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator reflect the work of, is it A. Raymond Cattell, B. Carl Jung, C. William Glasser, or D. Oscar K. Burroughs. Number 5. The counselor who favors projective measures would most likely be A. Rogerian, B. Strict behaviorist, C. TA therapist, or D. Psychodynamic clinician. Number 6. An aptitude test is to blank as an achievement test is to blank. Is it A. What has been learned? Potential. Letter B. Potential. What has been learned? Letter C. Profit from learning, potential. Or letter D, a measurement of current skills, potential. Number 7. Both the Rorschach and the Thematic Apperception Test, or TAT, are projective tests. The Rorschach uses 10 inkblot cards, while the TAT uses A. A dozen inkblot cards, B. Verbal and Performance IQ Scale, C. Pictures, or D. Incomplete sentences. Number 8. Test bias primarily results from A. A test being normed solely on white middle-class clients, B. The use of projective measures, C. Using whites to score the test, or D. Using IQ rather than personality test. Number 9. A counselor who fears the client has an organic neurological or motoric difficulty would most likely use the A. Bender Gestalt, B. Rorschach, C. MMPI or Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, or letter D. Thematic Apperception Test or TAT. Number 10. An interest inventory would be least valid when used with A. A first-year college majoring in philosophy, B. A third-year college majoring in physics, C. An 8th grade male with an IQ of 136, or D. A 46-year-old white male construction worker. Number 11. One major criticism of interest inventories is that A. They have far too many questions. B. They are most appropriate for very young children. Letter C. They emphasize professional, possession, and minimize blue-collar jobs. Or letter D. They favor female pursuits. Number 12. Interest inventories are positive in the sense that A. They are reliable and not threatening to the test taker. B. They are always graded by the test takers. Letter C. They require little or no reading skills. Or letter D. They have high validity in nearly all age brackets. Number 13. A researcher performed a study that has excellent external or so-called population validity, meaning that the results have generalizability. To collect his data, the researcher gave client a rating scale in which they were to respond with strongly agree, neutral, somewhat disagree, or strongly disagree. This is A. A projective measure. B. An unacceptable for use in standardized testing. C. A speed test. Or D. A Likert scale. Number 14. The BLEP is A. An intelligence test. B. An aptitude test. C. A personality test. Or D. An achievement test. And last, number 15. The blank are examples of aptitude tests. Is it A. GATB, the O Net Ability Profiler, and the MCAT? B. GZTS and the MMPI? C. CPI and the MMPI? Or D. Strong and the LSAT? And let's now proceed to answers and explanation. Number 1. The word psychometric means, and the answer is letter B, any form of mental testing. Psychometrics literally refers to the branch of psychology which focuses on testing. Choice D is used to describe answer scales in which values are given to different responses. For example, on a Likert scale, a strongly agree might be given a 5, yet an agree response might be rated a 4. The client score is then sum up of all the items. Number 2. In a projective test, the client is shown, and the answer is letter D, neutral stimuli. The idea here is that the client will project his or her personality if given an unstructured task. More specifically, there are several acceptable formats for projective tests. First, association, such as what comes to mind when you look at this inkblot. Second, completion. Complete these sentences with the real feeling. Third, construction, such as drawing a person. The theory is that self-report inventories like the MMPI do not reveal hidden unconscious impulses. In order to accomplish this, the client is shown vague, ambiguous stimuli such as picture or an inkblot. Some believe that by using projective measure, a client will have more difficulty faking his or her responses and that he or she will be able to expand on answers. Number 3. The 16 PF reflect the work of, and the answer is letter A, Raymond B. Cattell. The 16 PF or 16 Personality Factor Questionnaire is suitable for persons 16 and above and has been the subject of over 2,000 papers or other communication. The test measures key personality factors such as assertiveness, emotional maturity, and shrewdness. So choice C is another Cattell who coined the term mental test and spent researching mental assessment and its relation to reaction time at the University of Pennsylvania. James Cattell had originally worked with Wundt and later Galton. Tests and inventories like the 16 PF that analyze data outside of a given theory are called factor analytic tests or inventories rather than theory-based tests. Number 4. The Myers-Briggs Type Indicator reflect the work of, and the answer is letter B, Carl Jung. The MBTI is based on Carl Jung's analytic psychology. The MBTI uses dichotomous types, extroversion versus introversion, sensing versus intuition, thinking versus feeling, and judging versus perceiving. The test result in a 4-letter type score such as ISFJ or introversion, sensing, feeling, and judging. While Burroughs mentioned in choice D of this question, as well as the last, is noted for his Mental Measurement Yearbook, which was the first major publication to review available tests. Number 5. The counselor who favored projective measure would most likely be a... The answer is letter D, psychodynamic clinician. Choices A, B, and C all reflect positions that do not rely heavily on unconscious mind, especially the behaviorist who believe that if you can't directly measure the behavior, then it is not meaningful. Some theories like Allport would contend that even if it is true that unconscious impulses exist, they are not very important. Number 6. An aptitude test is to blank as an achievement test is to blank. And the answer is letter B, potential, what has been learned. An aptitude test assesses potential and predicts. An achievement test examines what you know, like in the left. Predictive validity is particularly important when choosing an aptitude test. Number 7. Both Rorschach and Thematic Apperception Test are projective tests. The Rorschach uses 10 inkblot cards while the TAT uses, and the answer is letter C, pictures. The TAT consists of 30 cards plus 1 blank card. The test, which is intended for ages 4 and beyond, uses up to 20 cards when administered to any given individual, like 19 selected to fit the age and sex of the client, plus 1 blank card. The pictures on each of the cards are intentionally ambiguous, and the client is asked to make up story for each of them. Choice D would describe a projective test such as Rotor inkblot sentence blank, in which the subject completes an incomplete sentence with real feeling. Number 8. Test bias primarily results from, and the answer is letter A, a test being normed solely on white middle-class clients. This bias should be communicated to the client when the results are explained. Number 9. A counselor who fears the client has an organic, neurological, or motoric difficulty would most likely use the answer is letter A, Bender-Gestalt. The Bender-Gestalt motor test, named after Loretta Bender, is actually an expressive projective measure. Though, first and foremost, it is known for its ability to discern whether brain damage is evident. Suitable for ages 4 and beyond, the client is instructed to copy 9 geometric figures, which the client can look at while constructing his or her own drawing. Number 10, an interest inventory would be least valid when used with, and the answer is letter C, an 8th grade male with an IQ of 136. Interest inventories work best with individuals who are of high school age or above. Inasmuch as interests are not extremely stable prior to that time, interests become quite stable around age 25. 11. One major criticism of interest inventory is that, and the answer is letter C, they emphasize professional position and minimize blue-collar job. Also take note of the fact that, contrary to popular opinion, interests and abilities are not, that's right, highly correlated. A client, for example, could have a tremendous musical ability, yet could thoroughly dislike being a musician. Number 12, interest inventories are positive in the sense that, and the answer is letter A, they are reliable and not threatening to the test takers. Generally, an interest inventory would be the least threatening variety of test. Number 13, a researcher performs study that has excellent external so-called population validity, meaning that the results have generalizability. This is, and the answer is letter D, a Likert scale. Created by Rensis Likert in early 1930s, this scale helped improve the overall degree of measurement. Response categories include such choices as strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Number 14. The BLEP is. The answer is letter D, an achievement test. The BLEP is testing your knowledge and application of material in a profession. And the last number, the blank are examples of aptitude tests. And the answer is letter A. The new ONET Ability Profiler is not literally a replacement for GAT-B or General Aptitude Test Battery. Nevertheless, since the GAT-B is dated, newer instruments might be more appropriate. The ONET Ability Profiler, created to career exploration, counseling, and planning, and the GAT-B, up with the new Medical College Admission Test. So choice B, the Glifford-Zimmerman Temperament Survey, is a personality measure for persons who do not have severe psychiatric disability. And that's the end of our drill. Ano score mo? Paki-comment mo naman. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell para lagi ka na-update sa mga drills natin. Keep safe and have a nice day.